Hi guys, this is Emma with Emma Makes Soap. We're going to do a quick tutorial today on how to make a nice soap with using a lace topper. So we are starting with some white melt and pour base, just a really nice plain base. This is goat's milk. I'm not going to color it or scent it because I think lace looks nice when it's that traditional white color. So I've got a nice silicone mat here from Amazon. I am spraying it with 99% rubbing alcohol. It helps the soap flow into all the nooks and crannies without creating any bubbles. I want to keep the soap really hot here to help it flow into all of the areas. So this is one of the reasons I chose not to scent it, because a super hot soap will reduce the scent. So I'm just pouring it into here, and then I'm going to scrape it across really thinly just to make sure everything is getting covered. You don't want to leave it too thick because then you'll lose the design. So we want to keep it nice and thin. So I'm just scraping the excess off, and then you can just pour it right over your mat, no big deal. I did lose a little bit of definition there in the middle. You can see sort of towards the top, so I'm going to add a little bit more. As long as the soap is still hot, you can continue to add. It did take me a couple of tries when I first tried this out. I did have to just go ahead and scrap several of them. The nice thing with melt and pour soap is if you mess it up, just peel it out, microwave it again, and you are good to go. You also don't have to use a microwave for melt and pour. You can choose to use a double boiler or something similar. You just want to make sure you're not putting it on direct heat. So you can see I'm putting any of that excess just right back into the bowl to warm back up. Now that it is set, which only took a couple of minutes, I'm just going to kind of comb it over a little bit at the top just to really thin out any areas where the soap might have been a little bit thicker, just to give me that really strong definition of the lace. Now that it's ready to go, I'm going to put it into the mold. I like to still keep it in the silicone mat. That way the lace is raised away from the soap, but you can choose to take it out of the mat and lay it down, and then it would be more of like an embed. The lace design might last a little bit longer when people are using it, but it really depends on your personal preference. So now that's set, we're going to do a thin layer of clear soap. I like to do a thin layer of clear soap before I add the actual soap part of the main piece of the soap, just to keep the lace a little bit further away. Makes it look even more elevated from the soap, but it also practically helps me keep from melting it when I do the overall base. So since that is set, we want to add another layer of that alcohol. Again, that's 99% rubbing alcohol. You can use a lower strength if that's all you can find locally. I've only ever been able to find the 99% on Amazon, which is pretty affordable. So now that that's sprayed, we're just going to do a really thin layer. You don't want your soap to be too hot here. That's why I'm holding the spatula. That way we don't get a hot spot as we're pouring. You don't want too much, and then we're going to spray with the alcohol again. Spraying with the alcohol after you've poured helps pop all of those bubbles so you don't get more of a rustic look in your soap, which is fine if that's what you're going through, but since we're adding layers, that's not what we're looking for today. Now that I have that part ready, I'm going to go ahead and do the rest of the soap. I'm going to kind of speed through this part because you guys don't need to see too much of it. We are going to do I have my extra clear and I have my extra white. I'm adding pink to both of them. I'm going to make a swirl. When you're doing a swirl soap, it's best to use two different bases. I've got the white, which is a goat's milk, and then the clear, which is a clear base. Both of the bases I got from brambleberry.com. You can get them from anywhere. The pink mica, you want to add rubbing alcohol first and then add it into your soap. You can choose how much you want. If you want a really dark color or more of a light color, you can see the white base gives it a pastel look, and then the clear gives it more of a neon look. Once your soap base has cooled down some, you want to add the scent, either an essential oil or a fragrance oil. You don't want to add it when the soap is too hot because it will cook off some of that scent, and then your soap won't be as strong smelling. You want to look up with your scent manufacturer how much to add per pound as what's considered safe for the skin. So now that those are nice and mixed, we're going to go back to our mold where we have our lace sitting and ready. You can see there's a nice skin on there. The temperature's dropped down. We're going to spray it with the alcohol again, and then I'm going to put just another really thin layer of the light pink. Again, I'm just trying to keep our layers from melting from each other, which is why I put a little bit in between. So I'm using that spatula technique again. That way it doesn't get a hot spot on one area. Spreading it pretty thin just to make sure we get some good coverage. So once we've got that set, I'm going to spray it with the alcohol one more time here. And then I'm going to go ahead and add both both sets. So we're going to add the pastel pink and the darker pink. You can add them at the same time. You can do one at a time. It's really up to you. The higher up you pour your second color, the more depth you'll get in your swirls. I like to pour all one color first, let it cool down a little bit, and then add that second color. When you're doing swirls, you don't want them to be too hot because they will just dissolve into each other. You typically go for between 130 and 120. With melt and pour, it will start to set up if you let it get cooled down too much, so you want to find that perfect balance. All right, and then here we are. That's the end. Okay, now that our soap is ready, we are going to go ahead and separate it. You're going to pull on all four sides, flip it over, and push on the bottom, and the soap loaf should release out of that silicone mold. Takes about 3 to 4 hours to set. It really depends on how thick you made your soap and how hot you poured. Some people recommend putting the soap in the fridge to set. I don't recommend that because it can create a dew on the soap, which creates, like when it rains on the grass, and it's hard to remove. So what we're going to do here is remove that silicone mat. We're just going to find a corner that works for us and peel it back. There we go. You can see that nice definition that the soap has on it with the lace. You're just going to pull it across that mat and it all comes off very nicely. Sometimes there's just some little squiggles on the edge. I just like to go ahead and clean them up now rather than doing it once we've already cut our soap. You see, just clear that off, make it look really nice. Okay, and we are ready to cut. You can see I'm just using a butcher knife here. I've tried several different cutters that are meant for soaps. However, since melt and pour soap is typically thicker or denser than hot process or cold process soap, they don't work very well and they can get kind of expensive. Most people already have a butcher's knife at home, so that's totally fine to use. You just want to drop it down and cut. It really depends on you on how thick you want to make your slices, if you want to make them thinner or thicker. Sometimes when I'm doing the lace one, I will make my bars thinner so that I'm giving away more of the lace design with each bar, but it's really up to you and your personal preference on how thick you want to give those. If you want to be really exact with your cuts and make sure your lines are doing well, go ahead and grab a sewing mat or a ruler. I'm not too worried about it since I give these away as gifts. And then I always cut a really thin slice off at the end for my daughter to use because she just needs a little piece of each of my soaps to play with. And that's it. I think that lace design and swirl design came out really nice. What do you guys think? Thanks so much for watching. Bye.